more deeply into it. So, start us off there, Dustin, please.
Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, after offering obeisances to the direction from which Ananta, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had disappeared, Chitraketu began traveling in outer space as the head of the Vidyadharas.
Being praised by great sages and saints and by the inhabitants of Siddhaloka and Charnaloka, Chitraketu, the most powerful mystic yogi, wandered about enjoying life for millions of years with bodily strength and senses free from deterioration. He traveled within the valleys of Sumeru Mountain, which is the place of perfection for various kinds of mystic power. In those valleys, he enjoyed life with the women of Vidyadharloka by chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Hari.
One time, while King Chitraketu was traveling in outer space on a brilliantly effulgent airplane given to him by Lord Vishnu, he saw Lord Shiva surrounded by Siddhas and Charnas. Lord Shiva was sitting in an assembly of great saintly persons and embracing Parvati on his lap with his arm. Chitraketu laughed loudly and spoke within the hearing of Parvati.
Chitraketu said, Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the general populace, is the best of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. He initiates the system of religion, yet how wonderful it is that he is embracing his wife Parvati in the midst of an assembly of great saintly persons.
Lord Shiva, whose hair is matted on his head, has certainly undergone great austerities and penances. Indeed, he is the president in the assembly of strict followers of Vedic principles. Nonetheless, he is seated with his wife on his lap in the midst of saintly persons and is embracing her as if were a shameless, ordinary human being.
Ordinary conditioned persons generally embrace their wives and enjoy their company in solitary places. How wonderful it is that Lord Mahadev, although a great master of austerity, is embracing his wife openly in the midst of an assembly of great saints.
Srila Sukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, after hearing Chitraketu's statement, Lord Shiva, the most powerful personality, whose knowledge is fathomless, simply smiled and remained silent, and all the members of the assembly followed the Lord by not saying anything.
Not knowing the prowess of Lord Shiva and Parvati, Chitraketu strongly criticized them. His statements were not at all pleasing, and therefore the goddess Parvati, being very angry, spoke as follows to Chitraketu, who thought himself better than Lord Shiva in controlling the senses.
The goddess Parvati said, Alas, has this upstart now received a post from which to punish shameless persons like us? Has he been appointed ruler, carrier of the rod of punishment? Is he now the only master of everything?
Alas, Lord Brahma, who has taken his birth from the lotus flower, does not know the principles of religion, nor do the great saints like Bhrigu and Narada, nor the 4 Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumara. Manu and Kapila have also forgotten the religious principles. I suppose it to be because of this that they have not tried to stop Lord Shiva from behaving improperly.
This Chitraketu is the lowest of Kshatriyas, for he has impudently overridden Brahma and the other demigods by insulting Lord Shiva, upon whose lotus feet they always meditate. Lord Shiva is personified religion and the spiritual master of the entire world, and therefore Chitraketu
2 must be punished.
Text 14.
This person is puffed up because of his achievements, thinking, I am the best. He does not deserve to approach the shelter of the Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, which are worshipped by all saintly persons, for he is impudent, thinking himself greatly important.
O impudent one, my dear son, now take birth in low, sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again towards exile. Saintly persons in this world.
Jai. Thank you. That was the last one that we're doing. So, just a little bit of an overview of the section before we get to the verse that will read the purport and everything, which is verse 15. So what's happening here is that Chitraketu, we saw in the last chapter that he received a mantra from Narada Muni, and he was chanting the mantra. And within a very short time, because he was so devoted and so attentive to his chanting and so sincere, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Anantadev, appeared in front of him and gave him blessings. And then as soon as Anantadev left, then Chitraketu got this promotion to the Vidyadhara Loka, one of the celestial planets. And he has all kinds of mystic powers, and he's flying there in a celestial airplane, accompanied by many women, and he's enjoying life there in amongst the Vidyadharas. And he's a chief of the Vidyadharas. He doesn't just become a regular inhabitant of Vidyadhara Loka, but he's kind of like the leader of all the Vidyadharas. So being praised, and he's being praised by even saints and sages on other planets like Siddhaloka and Charanaloka. So he was very well situated, you could say, materially. And then flying around in his airplane one day, he sees Lord Shiva giving a lecture. So he's sitting on the Vyasasan with a bunch of saintly people, great personalities from all over the universe, listening. And he's got Parvati on his lap, his wife Parvati on his lap, and he's got his arm around Parvati, and he's talking, he's speaking philosophy, speaking about, maybe he's giving a Srimad Bhagavatam class or something akin to that. And Chitraketu, from his airplane, he looks down and he sees that, and he's thinking, first he glorifies Lord Shiva, so you can see that he has a lot of, appreciation and devotion for Lord Shiva, because he's praising him, saying he's the spiritual master of the general populace, the best of all living entities. He enunciates the system of religion. So he appreciates Lord Shiva. And then it's almost part of his appreciation that he's appreciating that Lord Shiva's doing something that no one else can do. No one else can get away with that, right? Like an ordinary person can't just sit on the Vyasasan, with his wife or husband next to just cuddling there, and while they're giving class. Like, nobody can do that, but Lord Shiva can do it because he's a great personality. He's above fault. He's above and beyond all the rules of etiquette and things like that. So how wonderful it is, how wonderful Lord Shiva is, and how wonderful his activities are, that he can do these sorts of things. But at the same time, it does mention here that because Chitraketu had such an exalted position, that he became a little bit proud. And so he may have been, although he was seeing it as a glory, as a wonderful thing that Lord Shiva could do this, but if he was conscious of his position in relationship to Lord Shiva, he wouldn't have said it quite the way he said it. He wouldn't have, because the way it came out was as a little bit of a criticism, right? That this is not really the appropriate thing to do, but Lord Shiva is doing it anyways. So he was expressing it as how wonderful it is that Lord Shiva can do this, but at the same time, there was a little tinge of his pride in thinking that he had the qualification to say such a thing. So both of these things are playing out here in this pastime. Okay, so then Lord Shiva, how does he respond to this? He simply smiles because he understands the heart of Chitraketu. Right? It says here that he's the most powerful personality and his knowledge is fathomless. So because of his fathomless knowledge, he was able to know Chitraketu's intention and his actual evaluation of the situation. And he wasn't offending Lord Shiva the way previously Daksha had offended Lord Shiva by really insulting him very badly, right? Saying all kinds of things about him, that he's dirty and he's homeless and he's, wears skulls around his head and he sleeps in crematoriums, this disgusting personality. He's got he even goes so far as to say he's got like a face like a monkey or something like that. He says some really nasty things. So Chitraketu is not being nasty, and Lord Shiva can understand that. So he simply smiled and remained silent. And then some of the other sages who were sitting there, they might have also been like, what? That was quite a comment, like that. But then when they saw that Lord Shiva just remained silent and it was just silent and smiling there, then they also remained calm and cool. But Parvati did not. Parvati, of course, she's there, she's, see the sages and saints who are in the audience, they're in a mood of, being submissive and hearing and just, submissively and attentively hearing what Lord Shiva is saying. But Parvati's not in the audience. She's on Lord Shiva's lap, so she's feeling like, I'm in a position here where I don't have to just submit to this stuff, I'm not just going to see my husband smiling and think it's okay. So then she uses her position to speak up. And an interesting point here, so first of all, she's like, who does this Chitraketu think he is? Like that he has a right to say something when Lord Brahma didn't say anything, Lord Indra didn't say anything, no one else amongst the heavenly planets nor the sages, has the gall to make a comment on my great husband's behavior. And who is this Chitraketu? Does he think he's the spiritual master of the whole world? Does he think that he's, even greater than Lord Shiva? Like that. And then she says, actually, he's the lowest of Kshatriyas. He's impudent because he's overridden the other demigods, thinking that he's a higher authority than them, that he can pass such a judgment. So how is it that Chitraketu, who's actually a great devotee, who just had a personal darshan with Lord Anantadev, is, getting himself in this predicament where he's trying to kind of praise somebody, but he's getting influenced by pride, and he's getting himself in big trouble here with Mother Parvati. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, he says that the purport here, or the meaning of this pastime, is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead wanted to bring Chitraketu to Vaikuntha Loka as soon as possible. The Lord's plan was that Chitraketu be cursed by Parvati to become Vritrasura, so that in his next life he could quickly return home back to Godhead. So this was all the Lord's mercy, right? And we are reading in Bhagavad Gita, in our Bhagavad Gita classes at Krishna House, how a devotee perceives happiness and distress. Because in the end of chapter 2, Krishna's teaching Arjuna about the characteristic of a person who has transcendental consciousness, right? The Stita Di Muni, or one who is Stita Pragya, situated in transcendental consciousness. And he says the person is equipoised in happiness and distress. And then Prabhupada in the purport there explains, how can a person be equipoised in happiness and distress? He says that when happiness comes, he considers it the mercy of the Lord. It's the grace of the Lord. I don't deserve this, but Krishna's just being causelessly merciful. He's giving me some facilities, some resources, so that I can better serve him. Some comforts so that I can serve him peacefully. And then when distress comes, he also thinks it's the mercy of the Lord. That actually I deserve so much worse than this, but by Krishna's kindness, he's just minimized it to just a tiny little bit. And he's done this to facilitate my remembrance of him, so that I can take shelter of him and realize that this material world is not a place of enjoyment, and increase my resolve, strengthen my resolve to go back to him. So sometimes the Lord puts us in what appears to be adverse situations, but actually everything that Krishna does, everything Krishna arranges in the lives of a devotee, which is basically everything in the life of a devotee for a surrendered soul, it's all Krishna's mercy. It's all for the devotee's benefit. So even being cursed here by Parvati, to become a demon is the Lord's mercy, so that to speed up his journey back home, back to Godhead. And Prabhupada writes here that there have been many instances in which a devotee acting as a demon has been brought to the kingdom of God by the mercy of the Lord. Can anyone think of any examples of? Yes, Yasha. Go ahead. Putana, yeah, so Putana was a demon, and she was a really bad demon. Like, her specialty was killing children, and she had killed hundreds and thousands of children. And then Krishna just, in a moment, took her life and elevated her to the position of an assistant to Mother Yashoda as one of the nurses in Goloka Vrindavan, serving him, taking care of him, helping him, bathe him and dress him and all that. So, yeah, that was, if she was a devotee, maybe it would have taken a little longer, but as a demon, she very quickly got liberated. Yeah, any other examples you can think of? What's that? Hiranyakashipu also, yeah. So he was torturing the devotee Prahlad, and then Nrsingadev appeared and killed him. And then Nrsingadev was trying to induce Prahlad to ask for a benediction. Right? And Prahlad said, I don't need anything. I'm not worshiping you. This is not a business deal. I'm not worshiping you to get something from you. I don't need anything. I'm just happy to serve you. And then Nrsingadev said, no, please ask for something. I really want to give you something. It'll please me for you to ask me for something. He said, okay, please, my only request is that my father be liberated from the cycle of repeated birth and death. And then Nrsingadev said, what to speak of your father? Many generations in the past and many generations in the future are all be liberated just on the strength of your devotion to me. So, yeah, so Hiranyakashipu was automatically liberated, and very quickly, right? Yeah, so you could say that practically all the demons that Krishna kills, everyone, all the soldiers on the battle of Kurukshetra, every demon that came to Vrindavan, and so many demons that got killed, they get liberation in different kinds of liberation. Some, they get impersonal liberation, some get Salokya Mukti, they go to the planet of Krishna. Some get Sarupya Mukti, they get a form like Lord Vishnu. And some get, they get, like Putana, they go to the highest transcendental abode. So this is Krishna's mercy. All right. So you could say that it seems that Chitraketu was somehow induced by Paramatma to laugh at this time and to comment, to make the comment, and that Parvati was similarly induced by Paramatma to curse Chitraketu. Yeah, so she gives him this heavy curse in text 15. So let's go back to 15 and we'll do the Sanskrit and we'll read the purport to this. Atapapi yasim yonim asurim yahi durmate yate ha bhuyo mahatam nakarta putra kilbisham atapapi yasim yonim asurim yahi durmate yate ha bhuyo mahatam nakarta putra kilbisham. Please chant. Atapapi yasim yonim asurim yahi durmate yate ha bhuyo mahatam nakarta putra kilbisham. Atapapi yasim yonim yasim yonim Yahi durmate. Yate habuyo mahatam. Nakarta putra kilbisham. All right, let's do the word for word all together here. Ata, therefore, papi yasim, most sinful, yonim, to the species of life, asurim, demoniac, yahi, go, durmate, O impudent one, yata, so that, iha, in this world, buyaha, again, mahatam, to great personalities, na, not, karta, will commit, putra, my dear son, kilbisham, any offense. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O impudent one, my dear son. Seems like a little contradictory there. My dear son. Anyways. O impudent one, my dear son, now take birth in a low, sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again towards exalted, saintly persons in the world. So it seems like she's cursing him, but she's being a little motherly at the same time, right, my dear son? And the reason she's cursing him is because she doesn't want him to commit offenses again towards exalted saintly people. So she's feeling like she's doing him good. She's protecting him. So it's like a mother punishing the child when the child does something wrong. Why did you do such a dumb thing? Now go to your room and think about what you've done and come back and we can talk about it or something. So you've been very foolish, my dear son, and now you have to accept some punishment for that. So, purport. One should be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas, of whom Lord Shiva is the best. While instructing Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava as Hati Mata, a mad elephant. When a mad elephant enters a nice garden, it spoils the entire garden. Similarly, if one becomes like a mad elephant and commits offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, his entire spiritual career is halted. One should therefore be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Mother Parvati was justified in punishing Chitraketu, for Chitraketu impudently criticized the Supreme Father, Mahadev, who is the father of the living entities conditioned within this material world. The goddess Durga is called Mother, and Lord Shiva is called Father. A pure Vaishnava should be very careful to engage in his specific duty without criticizing others. This is the safest position. Otherwise, if one tends to criticize others, he may commit the great offense of criticizing a Vaishnava. Because Chitraketu was undoubtedly a Vaishnava, he might have been surprised that Parvati had cursed him. Therefore, the goddess Parvati addressed him as Putra, or son. Everyone is the son of Mother Durga, but she is not an ordinary mother. As soon as there is a small discrepancy in a demon's behavior, Mother Durga immediately punishes the demon so that he may come to his senses. This is explained by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. To surrender to Krishna means to surrender to his devotees also, for no one can be a proper servant of Krishna unless he is a proper servant of a devotee. Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keba. Without serving a servant of Krishna, one cannot be elevated to being a servant of Krishna himself. Therefore, Mother Parvati spoke to Chitraketu exactly like a mother who says to her naughty child, "My dear child, I am punishing you so that you won't do anything like this again." This tendency of a mother to punish her child is found even in Mother Yashoda, who became the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda punished Krishna by binding him and showing him a stick. Thus it is the duty of a mother to chastise her beloved son, even in the case of the Supreme Lord. It is to be understood that Mother Durga was justified in punishing Chitraketu. This punishment was a boon to Chitraketu because after taking birth as the demon Vritrasura, he was promoted directly to Vaikuntha. Jai. Yeah, so this world that we live in, the whole material cosmic manifestation is known as Devi Dham or Durga Dham. So this is the Durga Devi is the presiding goddess of the whole material cosmic manifestation. And so, yeah, she's in charge of punishing the conditioned souls. So you see the deity of Durga Devi, she has something like 10 arms, and in each arm she has a different weapon, right? And she's there very ferociously on a tiger, right? Her carrier is a tiger, and she's a ferocious carrier, and she's similarly ferocious. And so her job is to basically administer the reactions of karma to all the conditioned beings in this world. So she's, Prabhupada sometimes says the material world is like a prison house, and she's the prison warden who makes sure that the prisons get situations that they deserve for their correction. So it's ultimately a reformatory situation. And yeah, it's nice to think of this, that Parvati or Durga Devi, who's managing this world and meting out punishments to the conditioned soul, is also a mother. And so she's not doing it because she likes to torture people or animals or plants or any living beings in this world, but she's doing it out of love, like a mother. And she's punishing us because we keep doing the wrong things, you know. And so as long as we keep doing the wrong things, going against the laws of God, the laws of nature, then she needs to give us some, you know, punishments in order to teach us lessons so that we'll eventually learn and come to our senses and realize that actually, you know, trying to do my own whimsical, independent thing in this world is not giving me a happy life. And then we will surrender to Krishna or approach Krishna or turn to people who seem to be having happy lives, you know, who are spiritual people. Because the people who are happy in this world are people who are believers, right? They're people who have some kind of religious practice in life, and that they do some selfless service for humanity. There was a whole study that was done on the happiest people in the world, and they surveyed people in every country to find out who were the happiest by a set of parameters, and then after they saw then they did some research into what is it that all these happy people have in common, and it boiled down to two things. One is that they believe in God and they follow a religious path, and two, that they sacrifice some of their time or money in doing charitable work, voluntary work for others. So these are the things that bring happiness, and this is basically devotional service, right? That you believe in God and you offer some voluntary service on behalf of, directly to God or the servants of God, or on behalf of God for others who are suffering. So this is what makes us happy. And so when we do these things, then Durga Devi, the mother, she rewards us, right? She rewards us with good results, with good karma. And she's doing all that under the supervision of Krishna. So none of the demigods or demigoddesses are acting independently. They're all acting under the empowerment and supervision of the Lord. And so we don't need to worship Durga Devi. We just need to worship Krishna. Because when Krishna is satisfied, then all the demigods, demigoddesses are satisfied. Just like Bhagavatam says, like watering the root of the trees, then all the branches and twigs and leaves are nourished, or supplying food to the stomach. All the limbs of the body are similarly nourished. So the nice thing here, well, the danger in this world is that we can sometimes become proud of our position, right? Even as devotees. So Chitraketu was a devotee, and he received some good results of being a devotee, but the problem was that he became proud. So that's one of the dangers of advancing in Krishna consciousness, right? There are dangers to being an advanced devotee. And one of those dangers is that, you know, people will start to respect you. You know, they'll start to give you special treatment that maybe just new devotees don't get. They'll give you a special seat. They'll give you, you know, special prasadam, and they'll treat you differently. And you may start thinking, oh, this is very nice, and that I actually deserve this. After all, I've dedicated decades of my life to the service of Krishna. And, I've been studying Prabhupada's books for so long. So, please, just accept me as your mentor and ask, I'm qualified to give you shelter, and, rightly so that you're coming to me. So if we start thinking like that, then that becomes problematic, because as soon as we think that we're better than others, then that puts us into illusion, because on the spiritual platform, we're all actually equal. And whatever knowledge we have, whatever abilities we have, whatever advancement we've made, that's due to the mercy of Krishna and to Vaishnavas. So we should always give credit. Remember all those devotees that have helped us. By the mercy of the Vaishnavas that, I have some knowledge. By the mercy of the Vaishnavas and Krishna, I'm able to, speak something that inspires others, or do a service that is valued. Or I've managed to just continue chanting my 16 rounds for all this time. It's not due to any qualifications of my own, I'm just a fallen soul here in the material world, totally in ignorance, and the devotees picked me up out of the gutter, and it's all to their credit. And Krishna has helped me so much. It's to his credit. So Prabhupada writes here in the first line of the previous purport, he says, if a devotee thinks that he is very much advanced in devotional service, he is considered puffed up and unfit to sit beneath the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. I thought that was a very strong statement. Something to meditate on. That if we think that we're very advanced in devotional service, then we become unfit, actually, to sit beneath the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. When we first come to Krishna consciousness, we're really seeking shelter. There are 4 kinds of people that come to Krishna: the distressed, those desiring wealth, the inquisitive, and those who are after knowledge of the absolute truth. So in all 4 of these cases, there's a need for shelter, right? Especially if we're for the person distressed too. In Kali Yuga, that's the most common type of person that comes to Krishna, those who are in distress. So they're looking for shelter, they're looking for help with their life. They're looking for peace and tranquility and support, from someone who actually is all powerful and can support them. But then having taken shelter of Krishna and received that shelter and received the blessings of Krishna and devotees to advance, then after some time, they might start thinking, oh, hey, I'm a really advanced soul here, and I'm in a position where I can actually, not only help others, but also correct others and criticize others and, point out their faults and things like that. And we can develop a fault-finding mentality. And then what happens when that develops, if we're due to pride, then we are situated at the lotus feet of Krishna, and when Krishna sees us, criticizing and offending devotees due to our pride, then he kicks us out of that shelter. So we've got the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. We're situated right there at the lotus feet of Krishna, and then and Krishna takes his beautiful lotus feet and kicks us out. And that's what happens, if we start offending devotees too much, then we lose our taste for spiritual life. And it becomes difficult to chant Hare Krishna. It becomes difficult to read Srila Prabhupada's books and really get absorbed into them. We lose our taste for hearing, and we start seeing the processes of devotional service as just ordinary things. We start seeing Krishna prasadam as ordinary food. We start seeing devotees as ordinary people. And then before you know it, we stop coming. We leave the association of devotees. So this is what happens when we offend devotees. So there are, in 2 of the purports in this section, Srila Prabhupada quotes a very important verse, which is composed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for our benefit. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi suhishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. That one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street, and one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. As Srila Prabhupada writes, unless one is humble and meek, one cannot qualify to sit at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, we can all, especially those of us who have been around for many years, we can think back to the day that we joined. I remember when I joined in London Temple, I was so grateful to be in the temple, and just every devotee in the temple, even the newest bhakta. Of course, when I was the newest bhaktin, even the person who had joined, 2 months before me, I just saw everybody as a pure devotee, Everybody was just amazing and pure and knowledgeable and saintly and glowing and like that. And I felt like I just wanted to observe everyone and learn from everyone and hear from everyone and serve everyone. And I felt like, I was the black dot on the white sheet. Everyone else was just so pure. And I was just like, thinking it's amazing that these saintly devotees have even accepted me, into the ashram here, where they're even allowing me to stand in the temple room here and chant Hare Krishna with them. So, but then years go by and you start thinking, and you start seeing little discrepancies and, faults and shortcomings and room for improvement amongst the assembled devotees. And as you make advancement yourself, you start thinking, oh, I chant so nicely, this person sleeps during japa. Or, I've distributed so many books, this person is useless. Or, you start thinking that you're better than some of the devotees. And then that's when we get into trouble. That's when our spiritual advancement slows down. When we first come to the temple, because we have that humble attitude, seeing everyone as exalted, we make so much advancement in those first weeks or months, right? But then as soon as we start getting into fault finding, it's like, it's like the brake, someone slams on the brakes of our devotional progress. So, yeah, and Krishna, having accepted us in the shelter of his lotus feet, he kind of, nudges us aside with the heel of his lotus foot, and things slow down. So we need to be very, very careful, because this is the one thing that can really destroy our spiritual lives. Otherwise, there's never any loss or diminution in our spiritual advancement. Even life after life, at the end of this life, we carry our spiritual credits with us. But Vaishnava Aparad is the one thing that can really liquidate our spiritual bank account, or at least freeze it so that we don't have access to it. Like when your account gets frozen because there was some fraudulent transaction or something, you can't use anything, you can't use your card, you can't withdraw money. You're just you may have millions of dollars in the bank, but you're like a poor person because you have no access to it. So it's like that. So, yeah, this is a warning. We can take a warning from the example of Chitraketu to not become proud and to be very careful, Seeing that no one else in the assembly criticized Lord Shiva, he should have been like, oh, all right, no one else is saying anything, I think I'll just be quiet too, or leave it to someone else, like Brahma. If this is wrong, then leave it to Lord Brahma to correct him. Don't let me be the person to correct him. I need correction myself, So, like that. Okay, so we have some time. I'd like to open it up for questions or comments. You did? Oh. Okay. Why don't you just... Okay, well, if someone else has something then. Yes. Okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for nice class. Yesterday actually I was reading the purports for these shlokas. So there is one shloka where Prabhupada actually says that instead of others taking the offense, who ordinary people looking at Shiva, in order to avoid that, Chitraketu actually commented on this so that he can avoid other people offending a Vaishnava. But immediately in the next purport, Prabhupada says, okay, what Chitraketu did was wrong and he shouldn't have done it. So how do we reconcile this apparent contradiction in this simultaneous purports?
Yeah, I was also, when I was reading, I was thinking, well, did he criticize him or not? Was he wrong or not, right? Because one purport it says one thing, another purport it says another thing. So that's how I was thinking, is that in one sense, what he said wasn't so wrong, because he was just, his intention was not to criticize, but it's kind of subtle, it's a subtlety. But the fact that he saw it and that he thought that he was in a position to comment, right, that was his fault. So he didn't want to. It wasn't that, oh, I'm going to correct Lord Shiva here, or Lord Shiva is wrong in doing this. It wasn't so much that. It was just that he had the prerogative, that he was in a position. See, what he did by making the comment was he kind of like put himself in a position higher than Lord Shiva, right? Because generally, according to etiquette, it's a senior person will correct a junior person, right? A junior person won't correct a senior person. If a junior person notices a fault in a senior person, they'll bring that to another senior person and say, can you please, speak to this person about whatever it is that's, causing a disturbance. So because he actually mentioned it, then that was his fault. Although he didn't intend it as a criticism. Yeah. What he should have done is gone to Lord Brahma or someone and said, oh, I noticed this about Lord Shiva and I was quite struck by it, and I was thinking it's probably one of his glories, but at the same time, maybe it doesn't set a very good example for others, because if ordinary people do that, it'll really make a farce out of Srimad Bhagavatam class, So maybe you could just like gently, speak to him and suggest that he refrains from these kind of behaviors. Yes, Gokulananda.
I was thinking about this, like Bhagavad Gita talks about there is not just one reason behind any action. There are 5 reasons. We're not getting into those details. But then I was thinking, whenever Supreme Lord, who is a multitasker, he has to give many lessons.
Yeah.
Because there are so many different types of devotees at different levels approaching Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are different lessons given to the different level of devotees.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, just like Parishit Maharaj case, it was ordained by the Supreme Lord. That is the topmost understanding. But then there are lessons also, like Parishit Maharaj became angry. So it is not the root cause. It is just the remote cause or secondary cause.
Immediate cause.
Right. So going back to the question that Mother Kunti posted on WhatsApp. So the pride is just like Parishit Maharaj's anger. It is not the primary cause. The primary cause, as Mother Prabhupada Priya explained, right? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur brings
Krishna.
up. So it is ordained by the Supreme Lord. So similarly, there are various lessons, and one of the lessons is you should not become proud.
Yeah.
At one level, and the topmost level is the Supreme Lord's will.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing we can learn here that I wanted to bring out was that even if a person is cursed by a great personality, it's always a blessing. So that's what's happening here, is that Parvati is cursing Chitraketu, but it's for his own good, right? It turns out to be a blessing, because why? He goes back to Godhead quick. And we see other examples of that, like when Parikshit, he was cursed by this Shringi, but then it turned out to be a blessing, because same thing, Parikshit went back to Godhead in 7 days, right? Otherwise he would have stayed as king, governing the country and dealing with, criminals and making policies and, doing yagyas and things. But he went back to Godhead in 7 days. And also when Narada Muni cursed the sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvara. They became trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and they got to witness the childhood pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, and ultimately to be liberated by Krishna himself personally in the Damodar Leela. So we don't have to be afraid of being cursed, but we should avoid making offenses. But if it just so happens that somebody, maybe we didn't even do anything wrong and we get cursed, but we shouldn't be afraid, you know. Whatever happens in our lives is good, because Krishna is all good, and he's our well-wisher, and especially for devotees, he's taking special care. So whatever happens, whether curse or a blessing, whether we're praised or blamed, in victory or defeat, happiness and distress, for better or for worse, just stick to Krishna, and with good faith that everything's all right. Yeah. Just grab the mic, please. Oh, Krishna will choose only the highly qualified devotees? For what? Yeah. Yeah, we see that generally, sometimes you read Srimad Bhagavatam or Mahabharata and you think, oh my God, do I really want to be a devotee of Krishna? Look how much they suffer. Look at what the Pandavas went through. You know, I mean, the devotees really go through the ringer. Yeah. And even that question is raised, like, why is it the devotees of Lord Shiva are so opulent and so comfortable and so well situated and happy, whereas the devotees of Lord Vishnu are impoverished? They face one reversal after another, one calamity after another. They get totally smashed. What did I sign up for here? You know, but we see it's great personalities, you know, in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's devotees who have a personal relationship with the Lord, like Chitraketu. He had a personal darshan first with Narada Muni. He has Narada Muni as his spiritual master, and then he sees Anantadev face to face. He gets the blessings of Lord Anantadev, and then he goes through this. So. And the Pandavas also, they were Krishna's personal associates and friends. You know, Arjuna was like one of Krishna's best friends. Kunti was like Krishna's own mother, Kunti Devi. And they were all so dear to Krishna, so near and dear. And yet, and so it's great personalities. So Krishna, we don't have to worry. Krishna's not going to give us a difficulty that we can't deal with, that we can't handle. And so the more advanced one becomes in Krishna consciousness, then the more the difficulties, the tests become a little harder, more challenging. But it's Krishna's way of just kind of keeping us in our stretch zone, right? He's not going to crush us, but nor is he going to keep us in the comfort zone where we're just going to stagnate and become complacent. He's always going to put some little thing in there to keep us on our toes and keep us praying to him and keep us, you know, turning to senior devotees for help and guidance because we're bewildered about the situation and what to do. And in that way, staying in the association of devotees, continuously being reminded of our helpless position and taking more and more shelter of the Lord. And also that protects us from committing offenses, because when Krishna puts us into a tailspin and we, don't know how to deal with the situation, we're just like, oh my God, my life is a mess, what do I do? Then we go to devotees, and then we realize we appreciate the devotees more and more. And then we're less likely to offend devotees, because we'll know that, okay, this devotee may have some fault or some lacking or whatever, but at the end of the day, this is the person that's gonna save me. This is the person who's gonna be there for me when I'm having trouble, when I need someone to save me prasadam, or take care of me when I'm sick, or be there to chant Hare Krishna at my bedside when I'm leaving my body, or you know what I mean? This is our community. These are the people who support us at every step, who do everything for us, who take us, give us a ride to the airport, who come to the hospital with prasadam when we're sick, who, and it may be the very person that you thought, that you saw a fault in, that is the person who does that for you, you know? And generally Krishna arranges things like that, you know, just to make sure that we appreciate devotees. So, yeah, Krishna is always helping us, and so he sends and he helps us through the devotees. So we have to always appreciate the devotees, overlook the faults, and see the service that they're doing. That's a quality. And that's what Rupa Goswami advises in Nectar Devotion, to just overlook the faults and try to see this person's chanting Hare Krishna. What a rare soul. Who in this planet, how many people on this planet are chanting 16 rounds a day, or even 1 round a day, or even coming, you know, to see Shri Shri Radhakala Chanji and, you know, offer some prayers or bring some donation for them or something. It's a very, very rare soul in this world. So anybody who's basically in our community, anybody that, you know, we cross paths with in service is a great, great soul. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, and is very dear to Krishna. So understanding that, recognizing that will protect us from committing offenses to devotees, and also realizing our dependence on the devotees. So we learn all these things in Srimad Bhagavatam by the grace of Shukadeva Goswami, Srila Vyasadeva, all the personalities that take part in these pastimes, and all of our acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, who explains everything in his wonderful purports. So I'll wrap it up here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada